Happy vibes. Who do we get them from? Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex. Yep, her and Prince Harry have landed a new podcast deal after parting ways with Spotify. And that is amazing because Spotify lost so much money on them. And you remember one of the executives came out and said they quite literally have no talent. But worse than that, they don't want to work.
What?
Never, ever in the history of the world has there been a couple that has grifted as hard and as successfully as they have, right? You just grifted off of your family, haven't really done anything since. You keep getting awards. You keep getting these deals. I don't understand it. And the brand that they keep going into is this idea that Meghan is a feminist. She's a true feminist, and that's why she's being awarded by Gloria Steinem. She's just a brave woman.
Yeah, right.
And yeah, I don't understand why her podcast, her original one, didn't take off. I've listened to it. I definitely would want to listen to this every single day of my life if there were more episodes. Let's just take it back to her old podcast that was on Spotify called Archetypes.
Okay.
When I was 14, I planned my wedding. Not my actual wedding. That would have been a bit harder to imagine. This wedding was an assignment for my Religion 2 class in Catholic school. At no point could you say, nope, my dream for the future is to be single.
What do you mean by that?
The message, even at my feminist all-girls school, was as traditional as it gets. First comes love, then comes marriage.
That doesn't make sense.
It was stunning, brave. I don't know what that podcast executive was talking about. She's amazing. I love her, which is why it makes perfect sense that another company has approached her. She has landed a new deal. This is obviously less than a year after Spotify said, no, we're good. You are losing us money. Well, Spotify, that's kind of your fault.
What the hell?
Because it's pretty obvious that these two are only good at selling their family throwing their family under the bus. And Meghan has released a statement about this new partnership. It is with Lemonada, and they're going to stream Archetypes.
Nice.
Yeah, they're going to handle all of the ad sales and the distribution. And remember, she had tons of people on to talk about this feminism. She had Mariah Carey, Mindy Kaling, and now they're going to take this on. Meghan released this statement. I am proud to now be able to share that I am joining the brilliant team at Lemonada to continue my love of podcasting.
Okay.
Being able to support a female-founded company with a roster of thought-provoking and highly entertaining podcasts is a fantastic way to kick off 2024. Our plan to re-release Archetypes so that more people can now have access to it, as well as launching a dynamic new podcast, are well in the works. I'm so eager to be able to share it soon, and I'm overjoyed to be joining the Lemonada family. Yes, she's not even going to do any work in the beginning. They're just going to re-release what she already did, and then I'm sure she's eager to do more, but the financial terms of the deal were obviously not disclosed. Lemonada probably just wants to get their name on the map. They're taking a chance, and I'm going to guess it's not going to pan out that well.
What?
Because people want to listen to something that sounds real. They don't want to be lectured about feminism. They don't want to be lectured about what they're doing wrong. They don't want to be told the patriarchy is all around them. And, oh, yes, remember when you were in high school and people were like, get married? Yeah, I do remember. It's an aspirational goal. Yes, getting married and starting a family is aspirational. Stop trying to convince us to do the opposite when you did exactly that. You got married, found yourself a prince, and pimped your way into Hollywood, which is where you always wanted to be. But let me stop. We'll cover this, obviously, extensively when her new podcast, that she's probably not going to do, it hits the market. So I'm really proud of Americans. It seems like a lot of us are waking up to the understanding that our mainstream media is just possessed with propaganda. They're just state media. That's the way to think of it. This is the CIA elects them into these positions of power behind the scenes, and their job is to condition the way that we as Americans think.
Here we go again.
And this clip, by the way, which is making the rounds, I have to show you what I'm speaking about. It is just so gross in terms of the adoration, the fawning over Zelensky, when quite literally they were just trying to convince us to be totally chill with getting to work and sending more and more billions, trying to make you think he was a hero fighting for democracy. Yeah, this is CNN's Erin Burnett. She has an opportunity to sit down with Zelensky and ask him questions. And here's what she was concerned with.
Okay, I'm listening. You have my attention.
Listen.
As a human being, so many people look up to you. They rely on you.
Fact.
No one can imagine how hard that is. Do you do anything for yourself? Are you ever able to take a minute to read or to listen to music or something to sort of give yourself that a moment?
I have such moments, important, to be in silence, to be alone. Alone, how can I be alone? Alone, I can be with music.
What music do you like?
Oh, I like AC/DC and Ukrainian music. Of course, I like Ukrainian music a lot because Ukrainian, that's native language. That's why you understand not only music, you understand the words and etc. AC/DC, I don't understand all the words because of.
But you like the music.
It's just incredible. It's like she's quite literally trying to date him.
She said, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait, first of all, you're not going to speed past that like you didn't just say what you just said.
So many people rely on you. Like, what kind of music do you listen to? And how do you find time for you? Could you imagine if when Tucker was interviewing Putin, he asked any of those questions? Like, so many people rely on you, Mr. Putin. What kind of music do you listen to? It's just such a joke, and it's so obvious. And to be clear, that interview was from last year, July 2023. But I'm showing it to you now because it seems that since then, there has been this mass awakening. There's a lot of corruption happening in Ukraine, and those of us who have had the courage to talk about it and expose it, and people say, why is it relevant? Because we're sending you money. I'm already aware that Putin is corrupt. We're not sending him billions of dollars, all right? There is, as I believe it and the way that I see it, a mass execution of Christians that are happening in Ukraine. Christians should be upset about this. We should be asking questions. It seems like they're just clearing out the region under the guise of fighting an unwinnable war with Russia. There is something that I have said is giving me Bolshevik vibes. Go back and watch our episode talking about what the Bolshevik Revolution was.
That was easy.
There's something about Zelensky that is not sitting right with me because we control him. And it seems to me that there is an ethnic cleansing that has taken place. But lo and behold, you guys, a network that claims to be independent, which obviously it's not independent. If you're allowed to be in Ukraine and be reporting any types of news, it's because you are operated by the state.
Okay.
They're shutting down churches. Zelensky has put his opponents in house arrest, right? Saying, you're not even going to compete with me. He suspended election. It's giving dictator. It's giving psychopath. We should not be funding this psychopath. But Vox, claiming to be completely independent, decided to release what is being referred to as a network of pro-Russian, disinformation in the West.
Nice.
And they've released 26 individuals. It's really stunning. Just to give you some honorable mentions here, Tucker Carlson, of course, because he went over and talked to Putin. That means automatically he's engaged in disinformation because you should not be allowed to hear from the other person in this war. You're not smart enough, ladies and gentlemen. Only Aaron Burnett is smart enough to interpret the news for you. John Mearsheimer, shocking that he's made that list. You've got Jimmy Dore on this list. You've got Russell Brand on this list. Let me jump right into providing you some passages. And let's just start with the prologue of the book, because this is actually in it. Ready? Quote, all at once, something shifted inside of me. I looked at Willie, really looked at him.
Okay.
Maybe for the first time since we were boys. I took it all in, his familiar scowl, which had always been his default in dealings with me. His alarming baldness, more advanced than my own.
That doesn't make sense.
His famous resemblance to Mummy, which was fading with time, with age. In some ways, he was my mirror. In some ways, he was my opposite. My beloved brother, my arch nemesis. How had this happened? His alarming baldness. He's alarmed by his brother's receding hairline. He felt the need to put that in a book because it's petty and it's small to offer commentary on how your brother is losing his hair. And it's petty and it's small to say that you don't even look like mommy anymore because you lost your hair.
What do you mean by that?
And petty and small is really what this book is all about. Now, what's incredible is that Harry obviously grew up in palaces. So there's just no way that we can connect, right? How many of us have grown up in palaces? How many of us can write a passage in our book about how we grew up in a castle with our brother?
Good question.
A castle that had 50 bedrooms. He's talking about the castle in Scotland, which was one of the Queen's favorites. Balmoral had 50 bedrooms. He says in chapter 2, one of which had been divided for me and Willie. Adults called it the nursery. Willie had the larger half with a double bed, a good-sized basin, a cupboard with mirrored doors, a beautiful window looking down on the courtyard, the fountain, the bronze statue of a roe deerbuck. My half of the room was far smaller, less luxurious. I never asked why. I didn't care, but I also didn't need to ask. 2 years older than me, Willie was the heir, whereas I was the spare.
I said, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait, first of all, you're not going to speed past that like you didn't just say what you just said.
Well, you see, Harry, what happens when you divide a room is that somebody does have to get the less better half. Somebody gets the view, somebody doesn't. And typically, Harry, in case no one has ever told you this, the older sibling always gets the bigger room. Fact. The bigger side, the bigger everything, because they're the older sibling. This is not unique to you. It is not because you are the spare. It is not because he is the heir. This happens in households all over the world. In fact, I am one of 3 sisters, and we had an older brother.
Nice.
My older brother, would you believe, us 3 sisters had to share a room while our older brother got his own room growing up?
What?
Were we the 3 spares? Is it worthy of putting it into a book? Of course not, but it's not enough because he goes on to describe this dynamic. I was brought into the world in case something happens to Willie. I was summoned to provide backup, distraction, diversion, and if necessary, a spare part.
Is he all right upstairs?
A kidney, perhaps. Blood transfusion. A speck of bone marrow. This is the best part. This was all made explicitly clear to me from the start of life's journey and regularly reinforced thereafter.
Stop it. Get some help.
Oh, does anybody actually believe that it was made explicitly clear to him that they might need him for a speck of bone marrow? This is not even how it works. It's just because you're siblings. Hey, I want to be very clear. Second sibling, you are here for a speck of bone marrow. You're here for a blood transfusion, perhaps, a kidney, perhaps. That's why you're here. And we want to make that explicit. Does he even know what explicit means? I mean, that is such a ridiculous lie. That any person told him that he existed for a speck of bone marrow. But go with it, guys, go with it, because he really needs you to realize that these very mundane things that he's experiencing as the younger brother, it's deep and it's a lot. It gets harder because you're not going to believe this.
Okay.
Then him and his brother went to the same school, and that school is Eton. It's an all-boys school. It holds boys from the ages of 13 to 18. It's considered the best school in the UK.
Yeah, right.
He talks about how once he became enrolled in the school, you're not going to believe this, his older brother wanted to make it clear that he didn't want to hang out with him in the school, right? Which is pretty normal. Let's hear it in Harry's old world, because I couldn't dramatize it in the way that he does with his own words.
Okay.
Harry says, Willie told me to pretend that I didn't know him. What? You don't know me, Harold, and I don't know you. For the last 2 years, he explained, Eton had been his sanctuary. No kid brother tagging along, pestering him with questions, pushing up on his social circle. He was forging his own life, and he wasn't willing to give that up.
What do you mean by that?
For Willie, it was pure agony to wear the same blazer, the same tight shorts as me. And now to attend the same school was pure murder.
What?
I told him not to worry. I'll forget I ever knew you. Pure murder. Oh my gosh. Could you imagine that taking place? Siblings saying, hey, don't even talk to me in school. Oh, I bet you could imagine, because this happens in every household. Fact. I actually had the unique scenario where me and my two sisters, because we were all exactly a year and a half apart, all three of us went to the same high school at the exact same time. And of course, we were trying to forge our own existences. We did not want to hang out with each other. We would yell at each other if we wore the same shirt, the same color. We would pull up at school, and I would look at my little sister and be like, don't even look at me today. Don't even look at me if you see me in the hallway. Stop hanging out with the same people as me. I remember, and I'm just coming out with this now because God forbid my little sister writes a book, and it's called Spare, and she talks about the trauma that I put her through. I did this, I want to come clean. When Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera were both dropping their music in the 2000s, I told my sister that she had to pick whether or not she was Team Christina or Team Britney.
That doesn't make sense.
And she said she liked both of their music, and I told her she had to pick, and she picked Britney, and I told her that she wasn't allowed to listen to Christina Aguilera's music or hang out with anybody that liked Christina Aguilera like I did.
What?
So I guess that was a childhood trauma, and it is worthy of $25 million to put into a book about awful treatment. I mean, how absolutely normal is it that Willie does not want to hang out with his little brother in school when he's around him all the time? How absolutely normal that he doesn't want to wear the same clothes. Not if you are Prince Harry. Now, here's where it gets really interesting, because this is what happened one time when they were at Eton together. Basically, he goes and he recounts the story about how one of his mates, Harry's mates, completely not related at all to Willie, convinced him to shave off his hair. Right? And so Harry cuts his hair, and the haircut looks really bad. And he starts freaking out and realizes that he's made a big mistake. And all of his mates are screaming and howling in laughter, like, ah, ha, ha, you just shaved your head. You can picture this because that's how the lads are. It's all the lads do. The boys make fun of each other. They're like, ha, 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 this is hilarious.
Okay, I'm listening. You have my attention.
So Harold goes up to Willie's room, and he finds him. And when Willie sees the haircut that Harry has given to himself, because, he can never take responsibility for anything he's done. It's always somehow Willie's fault. Willie laughs, just like all the other lads had laughed, because apparently it was a ridiculous haircut that he gave to himself. Now, here's the conversation that he's having with himself. I was just hoping that Willie would tell me that it would be okay. Don't freak out. Keep calm, Harold. Instead, he laughed like the others.
Stop it. Get some help.
I recall him sitting at his desk, bent over a book, chuckling, while I stood before him, fingering the nubs on my newly bare scalp. Harold, what have you done? What a question. He sounded like Stewie from Family Guy. Wasn't it obvious? You shouldn't have done it, Harold. So we're just stating the obvious now? He said a few more things that were immensely unhelpful, and I walked out. I think he's like 40 years old today. He actually thought it was a good idea to put this into the book because it's supposed to make us understand how traumatizing his life was, because he shaved off his own head and to make his mates laugh. And then when his brother laughed, it was a trauma because his brother was supposed to hold him and say, it's okay that you did this stupid thing. It's now somehow William's fault for not doing that. This is how this book goes on and on and on. Boring. Whatever Harry does, it's somebody else's fault, right? Harry can make no mistakes. Remember, notoriously, he says that he wore the Nazi costume to a party, but also that Will and Kate laughed at it. So he wants to share the blame in something that was so clearly his own decision-making. I am the one, the way your son don't. But this is, I guess, we're supposed to feel sad for him. All right, guys, the next portion of the show is going to be available exclusively on Daily Wire Plus. I'm going to be answering, am I the asshole questions from Reddit. So
Okay.
Thread on Reddit where people talk about what's going on in their personal lives and they ask the public, is it me? Am I the a-hole? So if you're not a member yet, go ahead and click the link in the description and subscribe right now.